Why do they all say the same thing? Why do all the Bantu people say the same exact thing, that they left Egypt, went south, and they crossed a body of water, which they call the Nile River, and they had a leader that led them out of Egypt, just like Moses, and he performed miracles, and here they are today practicing all these same Hebraic customs that I see in the Bible. I was talking to a Igbo woman and a Shona man, and I said, if a woman is suspected of committing adultery, what do they do? And he said that they have usually a medicine man, a singuma, a shaman, a diviner. He gets a concoction and he makes the woman drink it. And if she drinks it and she gets sick and if she dies, then she was an adulteress. If she drinks it and nothing happens, then she was falsely accused of adultery. That is in the Bible. It's in the Bible. One of the things I challenge people is to say that if I came on the scene and said I found the Ark of the Covenant in Madagascar, and then I report it on some website or an interview, how do you know that I'm telling you the truth? Because somebody in Ethiopia can say, we found the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia. They can say, we found the Ark of the Covenant in Mount Kenya. We found the Ark of the Covenant in the Congo. We found the Ark of the Covenant in Papua New Guinea. So how can we believe, or why do we believe that this white man is saying that he found this here or he found this here, and therefore we're going to say he's right. He's the gold standard. We have to believe what he say. This is the problem throughout history, is that we've only believed what the white man has given us.
Welcome to Something Nice with Dinano. And we want to welcome Ron Dalton Jr. And thank you for being here. Arguably one of the most controversial interviews we've had on Something Nice with Dinano. Yes. The comments, as the young ones would say, are lit. Yes. People are saying a lot of things. But I want you to take part, as you're listening and watching, in this conversation. Let us know what you think of some of the claims and revelations that Brother Ron is bringing forth. There's already a lot of people hurling out insults, saying we're crazy for doing that first interview. We're probably even going to be crazier for doing this one. But we'll take that risk because I personally think it's important information. Welcome back, Ron. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How have you been?
I've been good. Just battling different ethnic groups that don't want to see the movie Hebrews to Negroes and the content that I share. They don't want to see that coming to light here in South Africa or America. So it's a shadow banning effort that a lot of people have placed on me and the content that I share. Because it's the truth. At the end of the day, it's the truth, and they know it's the truth.
What are some of those issues? Have you had any legal challenges? What are some of the issues? I remember the last time you did say something. I didn't really post that video, but it's going out now on this one. So what are some of the issues you faced locally and maybe in the States too?
Well, I did have a meeting with the South African Jewish Board of Deputies June the 25th this year. And they met with me and their lawyers at the South African Film and Publications Board. And the reason why we had the meeting is because they wanted to reclassify the film Hebrews to Negroes so that it can be illegal to watch in South Africa, just like child pornography. And so they came, they said their reasons for why they wanted the movie to be banned and illegal, and they took about an hour or two to do that with their lawyers. And then I went after them and before the committee of the FPB, and I destroyed them. They all sat there and they were sweating, they were moving around, fidgeting, they were going through their files, they were, getting red and turning flushed in the face. They were getting up, walking around, pacing the floor, looking at each other, throwing their hands up because of the information that I was dropping at the meeting. It was a lot of truth, and they couldn't deny it. They had no comeback. and they heard everything I had to say, and the committee heard everything, and the lawyers just sat there in utter disbelief that they had just got a nice spanking from Ron Dalton, and then I left. And so we're still waiting on the decision on whether or not the Film and Publications Board here are going to reclassify the film as an XX rating, which will make it illegal and a crime to watch in South Africa. And that's how serious it is that you have people that are in South Africa they're not struggling, they're not unemployed, they're not oppressed. They own a lot of businesses and run a lot of things in the economy, and they're wealthy. You have millionaires and billionaires that are South African of Jewish descent, and for a small minority population here in South Africa to care that much about this one movie and black people in South Africa getting to see the movie, you have to ask yourself, for me, if I'm a billionaire, if I'm a millionaire, if all my family and friends are here in South Africa and we're millionaires and billionaires living in the Western Cape, in Joburg, and anywhere else in South Africa, then why would I care about somebody else making a movie about their history that they have not been told about, because the history has been told by the conquerors, the colonizers. If I had $1 million or $1 billion, and I'm sitting in South Africa, if somebody made a movie about their people and where they come from, I wouldn't care. I got $1 billion in the bank. But, some people care that much to where they don't want this movie to be seen, and they go to the extent that they try to make it illegal.
Why do you think they care so much about the movie? Maybe they don't care about the movie. They care about the movie being restricted in terms of who gets shown the movie because of the publications board classification of the movie. Yeah. I mean, if it's classified as pornography, it would have to include sex. It would probably have to have violence. It would probably have strong language. Yeah. Does it have any of those?
No. The claim is that the movie is anti-Semitic, and the movie is 3.5 hours long. It's not a movie throughout the beginning to the end anti-Semitic. It's a movie about black history when it connects to the Bible and our true ancestry and origin and pedigree. And that's all it is. And they understand that the biggest thing that they have to prevent us from finding out is who we are and where we come from, because unlocking the history of who we are can then help us understand what is the reason why we're in this predicament we are now and what we need to do to get out of it, because it's all been laid out in the Bible. And if you look at the prophecies of the Bible, which were prophesied by Israelite prophets then through God, then it gives us an insight and instruction to what we need to do. But we won't know this unless we connect ourselves back to our true identity. So they don't want us to know who we are. They want us to believe in what they have told us to who we are.
Why is that? Why do you think that's so important for them to have us believe to be what they say we are, instead of us knowing our true identity and who we really are?
Because when you look at the religion is a stronghold, in my opinion, in Africa. If it's not Christianity, it's Islam. So in Islam, you don't have an identity. Your identity is the identity of the people that brought Islam to you. And just like Mapanga says, you change your language. You start learning how to read and write and speak Arabic. You learn about the Quran, about Ishmael, Muhammad. You take on the culture. And in Christianity, you're taught that Jesus is white, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are white, the angels are white. You don't see yourself in the Bible, so when the pastor is preaching to you, then if he was to ask you, or anybody was to ask you, who are you and how do you fit in the Bible, your pastor is not going to tell you. You're not going to know how to answer that question, because your pastor is not going to reveal that to you, because he doesn't know. And so then you're like a person with a lost identity. You may say that I'm Nigerian, I'm Ghanaian, I'm from Botswana. I'm South African. But at the end of the day, who are you? How far back can you trace your lineage? And if your lineage is connected to the ancient Israelites, then we have to ask ourselves, well, then who are the people in Israel? If we are the true Israelites, and we came from Egypt with Moses through the Exodus, and we're here now in sub-Saharan Africa, known as the Bantu people, then why are we here and they're there and we're not there? And so it leaves a lot of open questions if people are going to ask, because now if you understand who you are, then the Bible is about you. And all the prophecies that people think is being fulfilled in Israel is null and void, because you're the real Jews. At the end of the day, that's the biggest thing that they don't want the world to know, because it's going to shift what we believe is the chosen land, or the land of milk and honey, or the land of Israel, and who are the original inhabitants and heirs to that land. And we see today the fighting going on in Israel with Hamas and Hezbollah and the Palestinians and Syria and Iran. And it's all because of, this whose land is it, who occupied the land. People are angry and upset. And, this is being shown to us on the mainstream media. But ultimately, what if we can prove, like I prove, that we are the true Israelites, and that the land that we are in right now is the true land of Canaan?
There are so many things that are being said about the identity of the chosen people of God. You might call them the Hebrews, Israelites, the Jews. Don't know if that matters. There are also differences or differing opinions on where this land of milk and honey that is spoken of in the Bible, the land we today call Israel, where it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Can you touch on that? And when you touch on it, give us credible, tangible, historical facts.
Okay. So everything that I say, if people don't believe it, if they say Ron is making this up, then simply research it on your own. Google it. I mean, we got Google nowadays. You can Google till Kingdom Come all night long. When you look at the land of Egypt, the Bible says that the Israelites were in the land, and they became mighty and fruitful, and they multiplied. So much so that the Pharaoh said that these Israelites were becoming more numerous, and they were filling the land up. So much so that if they gain allies and they continue to multiply, then they can overtake and control and run Egypt. So then the Pharaoh said, let's do a campaign to minimize the birth rate of the Israelites. So he wanted to start killing the firstborn males. And this shows you that in the Bible, where it says that the land of Egypt, it says the land was filled with the Israelites. So the land of Egypt today is very, very large compared to Israel. Israel makes up 2% of the land of Egypt. So 2% of the land of Egypt is Israel. And so when God told the Israelites, I'm going to bring you out of this land and bring you into a good land, a land flowing with milk and honey, into a large, abundant, wide, vast land. It says this in the Bible. It says a large land. It doesn't just say land. It says a large, expansive, vast land. And when you look at the size of Israel today, you look at the size of Egypt. And when they left Egypt, they numbered close to 1 million people. And so when you look at that, and you know the Israelites, they practice polygamy, they have multiple wives. And you got to ask yourself, if they left with not only Israelites, but a mixed multitude, it said that a mixed multitude left also with Moses and the Israelites. Why would they leave a land that was already filled with them? And then God said that I searched the whole entire world and chose this land for you as a land I'm giving my chosen people. And it says in the Bible that this land is the glory of all the lands. And you take somebody from a big 20-bedroom house mansion and you put them in a tent. Because essentially you're taking them from a large land that they were filled in the land. They were multiplying like crazy, and they were all throughout the land. And then you take them and say, okay, this is your land now. And the land is not that big. I mean, when you look at the land of Palestine, even the size north, west, east of how long it takes to get from the Mediterranean Sea border of Israel to Jordan, you can do that in a day. You can do that in a day. To get from the southern part of Israel to the north, you can do that in quick time because the Israel is literally the size of Swaziland. It's no bigger than Swaziland and, say, Togo and the state of New Jersey in
and
America.
those are small pieces of land.
Small
right?
countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine your descendants having to stay in this land for hundreds and hundreds of years. The state of Israel today has about 10 million people. When the Israelites left Egypt about 3,000 years ago, they left with 1 million people already. So 3,000 years went by, and they've been having multiple wives, multiple kids. You mean to tell me that this land is supposed to accommodate all these Israelites and non-Israelites in the land? And then one thing we have to also look at is that it describes the land as a land not lacking anything, and that the land, you will eat bread, you will, the hills and the rocks will have iron, and it will have copper and silver and
This
gold.
is in the Bible.
Yeah, and it says that it's
References, Ron?
It's all in the Torah, all in the Torah.
Okay.
Now they can. Anybody,
You don't have any specific references because that's one of the things I'm really strict on.
Mm-hmm.
If you have claims based on the Bible, give us actual references.
Well, when you look at Deuteronomy, look at Exodus, look at the book of Numbers, and which is the wilderness. Any Christian that reads their Bible, they can even just, if they don't know the exact scripture, they can Google it, and they can see, oh, yes, it's right. The Bible does say this is a land of mountains, hills, valleys, streams, torrents, Torrents, which is waterfalls. It says it's a land, flowing with all these things. And when you look at Africa, you see all these things in Africa. When you look in Israel today, you have to ask yourself, why is the majority of Israel a desert? Why in the 1900s, the early 1900s, why did the Jewish National Fund, why did they start an initiative to plant over 250 million trees? Before 1901, even when Mark Twain visited Israel, he said that the land was barren, dry, desert. He said it was nothing there. He said it was devoid of life and vegetation. So that was in the 1800s when he wrote his book Innocents Abroad, on his ventures into Israel. Since the Jews came in to Israel, they have been planting all these trees. So why are they planting trees? Because there's no trees in Israel. And when you look at all the things that's happening in Israel in terms of all the imports of grain to feed their livestock, all the imports of cattle and lamb and calves to supply the meat consumption of the Jews, all the water techniques that they're using to provide water solutions to the state of Israel, the treatment of the wastewater, the tapping into the boreholes underneath the ground, the desalination of the Mediterranean Sea and using that water to fill the Sea of Galilee, which then runs into the Jordan River. All these things that's happening in Israel, it does not give you what the Bible says is the land of milk and honey, a well-watered land. And when people say, well, the Bible says that the Israelites were going to have their land cursed to be barren in the desert because of their disobedience. Well, if that's the case, then all throughout the Old Testament, when the kings of Israel existed, the kings of Judah, the kings of Israel, when they were celebrating their feast that they had 3 times a year, they were sacrificing and slaughtering hundreds of thousands of cows and bullocks and other animals. They were harvesting grain and wheat. They had different types of vegetables that they were, harvesting in Israel. And this continued until the end of the Old Testament. So when you look at a lot of these things, you have to ask yourself, well, why am I not seeing these things right now in the state of Israel? And even when you look at the animals, like I touched on before, you have to ask yourself, well, what happened to the animals? Was there some type of cataclysmic, apocalyptic event that happened in the land of Israel so that all these animals, they either got wiped out, or was there a mass migration of these
Extinction.
animals?
That's the other thing they bring up.
Yeah, but what happened? Did a meteor hit Israel and it just killed all these animals? Like like dinosaurs are gone now. We still have lions and elephants and leopards and hippos and zebras and wildebeests and buffaloes and giraffes and hyenas and wild dogs and wolves and all these animals that are in Africa right now. But these animals that are described in the Bible are not in Israel. So when you look at the Bible and you see in the Bible the word ostrich, hyena, jackal, dog, wolf, lion, leopard, elephant, you see an ass, and you see a wild ass. You say, well, I know a donkey is an ass, but what is a wild ass? A wild ass is a zebra. If you Google wild ass Somalia, you're going to see this animal looks like a hybrid between a zebra and a donkey. You say, well, I know what a bullock is and a bull, but what is a wild bull? What is a wild bull? And I'm looking at what a bull is and a bullock, but then there's a Hebrew word for wild bull. Well, a wild bull is your African buffalo, your wildebeest. You look at the constant use of the word ivory in the Bible, shin, S-H-E-N, and shin habim. And these words signify that there must have been elephants in the land. So where are the elephants in Israel? In the Old Testament, in the book of Numbers, God tells the Israelites what they can and cannot eat, which animals are unclean and clean. And it says one of the animals that are clean to eat is the camel opard. And the camel opard, or camelopardus, which is a scientific name for a giraffe, is in the Bible, in the Greek Septuagint. And the reason why they call it the camel opard in the Greek is because the word pard means leopard and the word camel means camel. So the giraffe looks like a tall camel with spots, leopard spots. And then I used to wonder when I read my Bible, I said, why do I see the word unicorn in my Bible? And then I had to understand how the Catholic Church and the Latin speakers, that they changed the word rhinoceros and monoceros. They took that out when they started to introduce the Latin Vulgate. The Catholic Church and the Latin speakers said, we can't have people reading this Bible and it says rhinoceros, because they're going to say, well, in the land of Israel, there is no rhinoceros.
What's the proof of that?
It's in the
that
Bible.
It was first called this, and then after a certain period of time, when the Latin people picked up on it, it was then changed to unicorn.
Yeah, so if you Google Greek Septuagint, and you can do the Greek English version, you can Google the King James Bible version before 1611, before they started to implement a lot of these changes. You will see in the Greek Septuagint Bible and in many of the old Latin Bibles, in the footnotes, you'll see where they have the word unicorn. In the footnote on the side or on the bottom, it will say rhinoceros. And you won't notice unless you do your due diligence and research these things. And one of the things we have to also understand is that when you're dealing with animals of the Bible, like the word lion and bear, a lion and a leopard, you have to understand that a lion is an apex predator.
Sure.
And so the lion has to have animals to prey on. And they have to have a habitat, including the elephant, including the ostrich, including the giraffe. They all have to have a habitat that they're living in and things to eat. And we know that lions, they don't run around eating rabbits and rodents and cats and dogs and small things, small little game animals. They're killing giraffes, wildebeest, African buffaloes, zebra, all these things. You see the hyenas hanging around the scene. So when we look at these things, you have to look at the aspect of why am I not seeing these things in the Bible? And when you also look at the word bear, people say, well, there's no bear in Africa, Ron. And that's well, if you look at the Atlas bear lived in North Africa, and they actually had what they call the African bear, which was twice the size of the Atlas bear that lived in sub-Saharan Africa. And they actually found skeletons of the African bear in Ethiopia, in Uganda, in Kenya. In Kenya, they call it the Nandi bear, the Nandi tribe. There's a Nandi tribe in Kenya that you see pictures of them with the British pointing at a bear, and the British have their guns pointing at the bear. But even in South Africa, they have a museum and a site that they have found a plethora of bear skeletons in South Africa, along with the okapi and elephants.
Where's this site so that it's easy for someone to look it up?
Langham Bay. I could text you the link. People that follow me on YouTube, they'll see me talk about these things. But this proves that in history that these animals, at least the bear, did exist alongside with lions and the big five. So if they existed, let's say 100 to 1,000 years ago in South Africa, then that means that all the animals that are in the Bible can be found in sub-Saharan Africa.
I personally hear your arguments for the so-called land of Israel that we know of right now that is going into war with Hamas or Palestine or whatever you call it. I hear you dismissing it as not the original lands that's referred to in the Bible. But now a question would arise and say, if that is not Israel, according to your claims and your research, the work you've put in, where is this Israel located? Is there a specific place? Because some people could argue. I've heard arguments saying it's either India or Africa, sub-Saharan Africa.
Mm-hmm. Well, the land of Canaan was a land that was not in the land of Egypt. Egypt was one of Ham's sons, and it was not in the land of Put or Libya, which was one of Ham's sons. It was not in the land of Cush, which was one of Ham's sons. Modern day Cush or ancient Cush will be today modern day Sudan. The land of Egypt is the land of Egypt, lower and upper Egypt, where the Nile flows through. When you look at the other son of Ham, Canaan, now in many of the ancient historical documents by the ancient Egyptians and the Puttites and the Romans and the Greeks, that even going back to 2000 BC, in the early dynasties of Egypt, they always talked about their expeditions into the land of the south, the land beyond the Nile River, or the land where the Nile River started. So they knew that there was a land south of Sudan or Egypt, and they knew that in this land that there were all the animals that the Bible describes, in all the landscape and the topography and the geology and the hydrology of that land in the south is what we would see being described in the Bible as the land of Canaan. Now, one of the things we have to look at is that when the Israelites left with Moses, they left with a mixed multitude. And because the Israelites only had one daughter, meaning Jacob, who was renamed Israel, he had one daughter, Dinah. When the 12 sons of Jacob went into Egypt, then they were marrying women in that area, women of Egypt, women of Cush, such as Moses and his wife Zipporah. She was a Cushite. So when they left the land of Egypt, they left as a mixed multitude with other non-Israelite nations that had been living with them and intermarrying with them. So naturally, when we see the Bantu language, we see that there's many Egyptian influences in the Bantu language in addition to Hebrew. And when we look at our DNA on the maternal side, on the mother side, we see an array of DNA haplogroups that stem from different maternal lines that our mothers that birthed us came from in terms of Egyptian mothers. Remember, Joseph had a wife that was Egyptian, and they had two children, Ephraim and Manasseh, from an Egyptian mother. So when we look at all these things and we say, why is it that the Bantu language has Egyptian and Hebrew in it? Well, the Hebrews lived in Egypt for hundreds of years and they intermarried with the Egyptians. So naturally, in the household, they would know how to speak Egyptian and Hebrew, or a Creole would develop.
Give us these references. You say Hebrew and the Bantu languages. There are some similarities. I think we touched on it in our last conversation, but for someone who hasn't seen that, that's coming across this type of information for the first time.
Yeah, so because of sake of time, one example I'm going to give you is that in the Kikongo and the Swahili language, which many linguistic experts say are the oldest Bantu languages, you will see a considerable amount of Hebrew and Egyptian in their languages. And all of these things, I have all the references in the Hebrews to Negroes books that are on Amazon and takealot.com. Also in the Hebrews to Negroes movies that are on Amazon and on H2N TV. Now, I understand that many people in Africa don't have access to the content that is in Amazon America. But, you know, if people simply go to h2ntv.com, they will see all the linguistic breakdowns of the Bantu language and how it has the Egyptian and Hebrew elements in it, the morphology, the syntax, and the lexicon. And only people that have been raised as Hebrew or were Hebrew and lived in the land of Egypt for hundreds of years could have this in their language, which is something you don't see in modern day Jews today. But when you look at the DNA of the Bantu people and how their migration went from Egypt into the African Great Lakes region or Central Africa, and then from there they spread to West Africa and South Africa and Southeast Africa and East Africa. We understand that the Bible was created and translated and authorized by the Greek Septuagint. So in order to have a copy or a translation of a text or a history of a people, you have to have some source of the original. So the original Israelites, whether they wrote it down or not, or whether they had these stories orally, the Greeks had to get their information from the original source. And the original source of the Bible, we don't have an original ancient Hebrew Bible that predates the Greek Septuagint. Even the Dead Sea Scrolls is dated to the Hellenistic Roman Hasmonean era, so that you see in the Dead Sea Scrolls that the Hebrew is Hasmonean, it's Herodian, meaning Edomite, it's Greco-Roman, or it's Aramaic, or it's Greek, with the name of the creator in Babylonian Hebrew, the Tetragrammaton. So when you look at these things, we have to, and I challenge everybody to really look at reality. And when you look at reality, you cannot say these things. Is that when you look at people today, we know that the Bible can be translated, authorized. The people that put together the Bible, they can insert, delete, change. We know that archaeological finds that they found in Israel and the Middle East, that if they're finding these things in the 1900s, then we know that they can translocate them to other areas. If they couldn't do that, then we wouldn't have these things in museums. So we know that when people came to these so-called sites And now these things are in museums. We know that the Europeans arrived at the site and they relocated these things and they have them in museums and they tell us, okay, we found this here.
Let's
we found
talk
this here.
about that, because on some of the comments, there are a couple of people that raised the name of your namesake, Ron Wyatt, I think, who supposedly did some research. I don't know what he had found, but some people refer to that guy, say, no, Ron Wyatt has dismissed these claims. He's found some fossils or whatever records that this is where this thing happened, and these are the archaeological or whatever evidence that is found.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Are we going to believe a white man that said, I was in Jordan, I was in this country, and I found the Ark of the Covenant, I found this, I found that? Are we going to go off his testimony and what he says that he saw with his own eyes? Or are we going to look at the Bantu people and look at their DNA? And let's say that we can't find any evidence of the ancient Egyptians and ancient Cushites and ancient Canaanites, because they are people that still live today, and they're not white, they're not Arab, they're black. If we cannot find DNA evidence of them and the Bantu people in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, in Israel, in the Sinai Peninsula, in Egypt, then how in the world could the Israelites, the original Israelites, who are the Bantu Negro people, how did they migrate from Egypt to Northeast, Middle East, Africa, whatever we want to call it? How could they have migrated that direction or went into Saudi Arabia and then through Jordan and then crossed the Jordan River into Israel if there have been no findings of the DNA of the ancient Cushites, the ancient Canaanites, the ancient Egyptians, or the ancient Bantu people in these regions? So we got 3,000 years of people migrating through this land, dying in this land. Their skeletons are in the ground, but yet we don't find their DNA evidence anywhere. But we do find their DNA evidence in Egypt, in Sudan, in Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Congo, Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Malawi, Mozambique, and all throughout sub-Saharan Africa. One of the things I challenge people is to say that if I came on the scene and said I found the Ark of the Covenant in Madagascar, and then I reported on some website or an interview, how do you know that I'm telling you the truth? Because somebody in Ethiopia can say, we found the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia. They can say, we found the Ark of the Covenant in Mount Kenya. We found the Ark of the Covenant in the Congo. We found the Ark of the Covenant in Papua New Guinea. So how can we believe, or why do we believe that this white man is saying that he found this here or he found this here, and therefore we're going to say he's right. He's the gold standard. We have to believe what he say. This is the problem throughout history, is that we've only believed what the white man has given us. Because in terms of the history of Africa, the history of the Kingdom of the Congo, the history of a lot of things that we read and see on TV, magazines, podcasts, radio, movies, it's all being given to us by the Europeans, the Caucasians, never from our lens, our perspective, our narrative. It's only now that a lot of people that are of Bantu descent, that are in East Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, West Africa, that they're speaking out. They're saying that their ancient migration story is that they left Egypt and they migrated south, and they wandered in the wilderness of Africa until they got to their permanent location. And then from there, they migrated to other areas. And this is exactly what the Bible says. The Bible says that, Abraham, he traveled south and continued to go south when he left Egypt after the Pharaoh found out that his sister or wife was actually, his, and not that she was available to be courted by the Pharaoh. When the Pharaoh found out that Abraham, that his wife was his wife and his sister, then he was mad and told Abraham to leave. Abraham left and he went south. Where did he go? He went to the land of Canaan. Even when we look at in the book of Numbers, after Miriam was cursed with leprosy because they were married. That Moses had married a Cushite named Zipporah. It says that when they were in Hazeroth, that they left Hazeroth. Hazeroth is supposedly in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. Then in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, it says when Moses went to send the Israelite spies to the land of Canaan, and they were in the wilderness of Paran. The wilderness of Paran is, according to what the Jews and biblical scholars say, is in Saudi Arabia. But Moses told the 12 Israelite spies to go up and go south to the mountain. So they're in Saudi Arabia, and Moses tells the Israelites, the 12 spies, to go up, meaning go to the higher elevation point of the land, and go to the mountain and to go south. South of Saudi Arabia is going to Yemen. But when we look at this word south, they constantly is using the word south, south, south. And when you look at Egypt, and you look at what is south of Egypt, where's the equator at? The equator marks the line that separates the northern from the southern half. So we know that the equator is a scientific and a real line. It's not an arbitrary line. It's not a made-up line like the meridian line. The equator does cut through Uganda. It cuts through the Congo River 2 or 3 times. There's actually scientific tests that you can test that in Uganda, in the Congo, in South America, where the equator cuts, we can prove that this is the equator. They can do scientific tests with water and everything. So we know that south of Egypt was near the equator, where the tropical Central African region was, where you see all the forestry, all the wildlife. Even the word Tanganyika in Swahili means the wilderness. It means the uninhabited plain. It even, in the Shona language, it means the first land. So Lake Tanganyika straddles the border of the Congo and Tanzania. So in that whole Central African region is where many of the Israelites migrated down from Egypt and then got into what we will call today the former kingdom of the Congo.
Okay, there are some things that are at the top of my head that I want you to provide clarity on. I'm thinking of references in the Bible where they specifically refer to black people, and they actually say African men. I think there's reference to Nimrod in the Old Testament. Some people are saying we shouldn't even be calling it the Old Testament. But the Old Testament, there's reference to Nimrod, who was a ruler or an emperor of some sort. I think during the time of the Tower of Babylon.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's reference to a guy, Simon the eunuch, I think in the New Testament, and he becomes one of the first people that get baptized in the new Christian movement, or whatever you call it. There's also reference to a black guy who helps Christ with his cross.
Yeah.
If this is the history of black people, why are there specific references to these black people if this is a history of black people anyway?
Well, you really don't have to even use those references when you understand that the ancient Egyptians were black. The Somalians know this. The Somalians that I met here in South Africa, the Dur clan, DIR clan, they can tell you that their language is closely connected to the ancient Egyptian, even in some of their ancient writings and books in archaeological finds. They could show you that these ancient marks that are Somalian can be also seen in ancient Egypt. And their DNA proves that they're connected to the ancient Egyptians, from their skulls to their jaws to their DNA on the mother's side and the father's side. They can be connected to the DNA of the ancient pharaohs of Egypt. And we know the Somalians are not white; they're black. We know that the ancient Cushites, one of the other sons of Ham, was black. We know that the Canaanites had to be black if his brothers were black. And we know that the ancient Libyan Puttites that ruled some of the dynasties of ancient Egypt, they were also black. We could see this with Pharaoh Shoshank and Pharaoh Orsakan and Pharaoh Eaput. So these pharaohs I just named were Libyan Put-type pharaohs, and they have actual pictures that are engraved on stone what they look like, and they look black. They don't look like white Arabs like Gaddafi or white Arabs we see in Libya today. So just knowing that the Israelites mixed for hundreds of years, over 1,000 years, with the black Canaanites, the black Cushites, the black Egyptians, how in the world could they be a white race today if they mixed with all these women of Ham and then left Egypt to continue south into the interiors of Africa? And we see that in Africa, in the interiors of Africa, there are no white people. Prior to colonization, there were no white people in Africa. And when many of the Europeans ventured into the interiors of Africa, they found that there was another race of black people that were already living in Congo, the Central African Republic, Cameroon, Gabon, Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania. And these were little black people. Little black people. So where do they come from? Where do they come from if they're not the ancient Egyptians, if they're not the ancient Cushites, if they're not the ancient Libyans? Then who are they? The only other son of Ham, or the son of the land of Ham or Africa, is Canaan. And Canaan was the son that got the largest piece of land, the best land that was given to the Israelites. And we see that in the land of the little black people that dwelt in the forest, in the African rainforest and the savanna and the plains, we see that these lands are exactly how the Bible describes the land of Canaan in the Bible. So one of the things that I also like to challenge people is we have to figure out who are the Canaanites, because the children of Israel were given the land of Canaan. So the land of Canaan was belonged to and inhabited by the Canaanites. If we cannot prove this, then we can't move further. So if you want to say that the Canaanites are the Lebanese people, they're the Palestinian people, they're Jewish people, or they're black Bedouins, and we need to do DNA studies on these people and to prove that these people today, meaning the white Lebanese people, the white Palestinian Arabs, the Jews, can we connect their DNA to being akin and related to black Nilots in southern Sudan, black Nubians, black Somalians, black Tuareg Libyans that are in Libya, and other Libyan Put-type related nations that are in the Sahel region today, such as the nations of Chad, Western Sudan, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, or Mauritania, and even going into the houses in the Fulani that are in the northern parts of Cameroon, Nigeria, and Ghana. So we have to look at these things because in terms of DNA, their DNA is different than the Bantu people's DNA. The African Pygmies' DNA is not the same as our DNA. The Tuareg, the Hausa, the Fulani, the Dinka, the Somalians, the Hadza people, their DNA is different than our DNA. So that means that we have a different paternal forefather, a different bloodline. So what I like to challenge people on is look at reality. We're living in a real world. So the reality has to line up with what the Bible says. If it doesn't, then we have a problem, because we know that mankind can manipulate the Bible. He can delete, insert, change, authorize, translate. And in regards to the archaeological finds, he can move things around. And mankind can rename locations. He can rename mountains, rivers, cities, towns. When you look at Mount Zion, it is no mountain. When you look at Mount Olives, it's not a mountain.
Hills.
Yeah, it's like a hump in the ground. So when you go to Israel, you go say, let me see Mount Zion. In the Bible, it says that Mount Zion is the highest of mountains. It says it is a high mountain. In Ezekiel 36, it says that we're going to eat off the fat pasture of the high mountains of Israel. When you go to Israel in Jerusalem and you just turn around 360, you're not going to see any tall mountains. You're not going to see that. You're going to say, where's Mount Zion? They're going to say, well, there it is right there. You can say, that's a city. That's not a mountain. We look at Har Megiddo. Har Megiddo means Mount Megiddo, meaning the Battle of Armageddon. The Battle of Armageddon is happening on Mount Megiddo. Where is Mount Megiddo? The mountain of Megiddo. It's not there. Where is it at? So when we look at all these things, even when we talked about on the last show, the Israelites did not cross the Red Sea. They crossed the river of reeds.
That's another talking point on the comments. Yeah.
Yes, the Hebrew word is Yam Suf. It is not Adam Suf. Adam means red. Edom is Edom, Esau. Adam means red, Adom. Even in Swahili, it means the same thing. But we see in the Hebrew Bible, we can look at the King James and it could say Red Sea, Red Sea, Red Sea. No, in the Hebrew, any Jewish scholar, historian, rabbi that knows Hebrew, what does it say? They're going to say sea of reeds, river of reeds. Reeds do not grow in the saltiest ocean water on planet Earth, the Red Sea. Reeds don't grow there. Reeds grow along the riverbanks of freshwater sources. So why is it that all the Bantu people say that they left Egypt, they migrated to where they are today, and they crossed a body of water, meaning the Nile River? Why do they all say the same thing? Why do all the Bantu people say the same exact thing, that they left Egypt, went south, and they crossed a body of water, which they call the Nile River, and they had a leader that led them out of Egypt, just like Moses, and he performed miracles, and here they are today practicing all these same Hebraic customs that I see in the Bible. I was talking to a Igbo woman and a Shona man, and I said, if a woman is suspected of committing adultery, what do they do? And he said that they have usually a medicine man, a singuma, a shaman, a diviner. He gets a concoction and he makes the woman drink it. And if she drinks it and she gets sick and if she dies, then she was an adulteress. If she drinks it and nothing happens, then she was falsely accused of adultery. That is in the Bible. It's in the Bible.
I hear you. I don't know if someone else who's listening will be happy, but it makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Now, let's just go into some of the customs that we find in the Bible. There's one that I'm thinking of. Mm-hmm. Boys being circumcised at 8 days old. Mm-hmm. We still have it here from the culture that I grew up in, the Xhosa culture, but not at 8 days. It's about, now it's at about 18 years. Mm-hmm. Do we have African cultures and tribes or nations or people that are still practicing some of the customs that are found in the Bible?
Yes. For instance, the Bamileke tribe and other tribes in Cameroon, even the Krobo tribe in Ghana, they circumcise. And if you ask them, when was the time frame that you circumcise, and they say after a week, and I say on the 8th day, you say yes. You say when the child is born, when do you name the child? It could be in Ghana, it could be in Cameroon. They say after a week, and I say on the 8th day, they say yes. You ask them about the circumcision rite. They say they have to go to a mountain, and usually the elders or a priest has to take the boys up to the mountain and perform a rite of passage, and then they stay up there for a while, and then they come down. They're a man. This is seen when Joshua circumcised the Israelites on the mountain Gilgal, Gilgal. You see that when the story that Laban tricked Jacob to get Leah first, and then he had to work 7 years to get Rachel. We see that sometimes when in Bantu culture, when people want to marry a woman, that at the ceremony or pre-ceremony, that the woman is covered up. Either she's laying on the ground or crossing the ground, and they cover the woman up, and they ask the groom to pick your wife, and he has to pick the right wife. And if he picks the wrong, if he takes off the blanket or the covering of the woman, and it's not his wife, then he has to pay money, and everybody's laughing, and he's continue to do that until he picks the right wife. Even the submission, how women are supposed to lay at the man's feet or to kneel down at the man's feet. You see this in the story of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, was an Israelite from the tribe of Judah, and she told Ruth and when dealing with Boaz, another Israelite, that she needed to go to his feet and get down and to not make herself be seen. And then when Boaz awakened, uh, Ruth asked Ruth asked Boaz to cover her with his garment, and so he covered her, and that showed that this man that she wanted him to be is her covering or her husband. So that was a sign of submission as being a righteous woman. And when you look at a lot of the funerary rites, when somebody dies, the immediate family cannot touch the body. They have to get usually an elder or priest to come and remove the body. But then the people that are in the household of the immediate family are considered unclean in the Bible. And usually in the Bible, they will tell you, do not shave your head for the dead. And this was a practice done in ancient Egypt, but the Israelites kept doing this so that when people people die in their family, that they shave their head. They wear all black, or they wear sackcloth and ashes, and then they have to go through a cleansing ceremony to be considered clean after being unclean from the dead body or the dead person that died in your family. We see that, a lot of the ways that the Israelites harvested plants. Like I was talking to a Zimbabwean Shona man, and he said that they had a farm, and that they would offer the first fruit of the farm to the Creator, but they also left a portion of the farmland for the stranger or the foreigner or a sojourner or a widow or the poor. And he said he never understood why they would leave a portion of the land for the poor, the sojourner, the foreigner, the stranger. When he read it in the Bible, it made sense. Then he said that there's a time where they have a sabbatical land rest, where they actually let the land rest and they don't do anything to the land. And they have to wait until they can retill the land. These are all in the Bible. And, I talked to a Ghanaian Ewe man, and he told me that there's a different time length of how long a woman is considered unclean if she has a male child or a woman child. I think he said that if she has a woman baby or child, that the woman is considered twice as long as unclean as if she had a male child at birth. And when he told me this, I said, this is in the Bible. And I said, who told you this? Who taught you these customs and traditions? Did the white man teach you this? Did the Jews teach you this? He said, no, this has been our traditions and customs for thousands of years. So all these things, you can just read through Leviticus and look at a lot of the things that's seen in the Bible. A dowry, paying a lobola for a dowry, whether it's money or livestock. This is in the Bible. When you look at when a man has a wife and the man has a brother, and let's say the man dies, then the brother has to assume responsibility and care of the wife, and even to help continue his seed, his paternal line. That's called the levirate marriage. This is practiced in Bantu culture. So there's a ton of things that we see that are being practiced right now in Bantu culture that is straight out the Old Testament. Yet the Bantu people, when they came into sub-Saharan Africa, they weren't walking into sub-Saharan Africa with the Holy Bible, with the KJV. They didn't have that. They just had it orally in their heads from the elders. So the language, the traditions, the customs, the oral history, the DNA, all the animals, all the vegetation, the wheat, the barley, the fig tree, the acacia tree, the pomegranates, the grapes, all these things are in the land of sub-Saharan Africa. The copper, the cobalt, the tin, the aluminum, the granite, the silver, the gold, the iron ore, the diamonds. The second row of the breastplate of the high priest has diamond. Where do the Jews go to get diamonds so they can refine it? We look at the Oppenheimers and the Beers. Where are they going to get their diamonds? They're going to South Africa. They're going to Botswana. They're going to other countries to get their diamonds. The Bible says that the land of Israel has all these things in it, but yet we don't see copper mines, silver mines, gold mines, iron mines, diamond mines, all in the land of Israel because they're getting all these things from Africa.
So basically, Brother Ron, if someone is confused, you're saying the Bible is not lying. It's our interpretation thereof, or us trying to locate these places and we're getting it wrong right there. Is that the case? Is the Bible the Word of God?
The Bible,
Should we
the
trust
Bible,
it?
the Bible is just like when you look at any book, even the Quran has different versions. The Bible, over time, has been written, authorized, and translated by the Greeks. Then the Romans got to it, and the Catholic Church. Old English, Latin, English. So all throughout history, the Bible has been given to us, whether they inserted things, changed things, deleted things, changed the narrative, changed verses or certain parts of the story that we're like, oh, well, wait a minute, this kind of doesn't make any sense. We have to take it as what it is. They didn't create the Bible out of thin air. They had to have had the original people in their oral history to have something to go off of, to even write and create the Bible. Because without the Bantu people, there will be no Bible.
Is it the Word of God, Ron?
In terms of the history of the Israelites, the prophecies of the Israelites in the past, the present, and the future, then yes, it is, because the prophecies are the Word of God.
Okay.
The God speaks through His prophets, and these prophecies are only seen in the Bible.
Okay. Let's go to what the people had said. I posted something on the community tab on our YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
First comment, I can't tell who it's from, but the person says, Amen, I'm excited about Ron being available again for another interview on Something Nice with Dinano. If you're enjoying the conversation, hit the like button, share, and subscribe to get interviews and conversations with people like Ron and other people that have something important to say. Linda Mtumkulu says, I don't have questions, but really interested in his ministry. We'll put your web address below. In the beginning, the middle, and the end this time around, because I knew you had something to complain about the last time. Live or Levi Chawuke says, if he says Bantu people are the real Israelites, is he also saying that our cultural practices are also biblical and holy? Let's be brief on these ones. A minute max.
Yes, it does mean that.
Okay. You've already elaborated, right? Yeah. Okay. Here's another one. Lionel Suazo, or something along those lines. I think he said he's from the Caribbean, if I'm not mistaken. I got a few questions. Ask him if the Hispanic and the Native Americans are Hebrews too. Are they?
No, not all of them.
But some of them.
Yeah.
I want us to be brief on these ones.
Yeah, some of them.
Can you name those tribes or nations?
Well, a lot of the North American Indian tribes that were melanated, not white, they got their melanin from somewhere. And when you look at the melanin of the Native American Indians of the old and the East Indians, or the ones that are in the South and in Central India, their melanin can be found intermixed with Bantu people. And there's DNA markers that prove that they, like others, have migrated to that land called the Americas, because the Americas is surrounded by water. So they didn't fly there, they didn't swim there, they got there somewhere. So they have an origin too.
Here's another one. I can't tell because it's just the handle. It says, ask him about Mount Kenya being the real Mount Zion of the Bible, as the elders there teach.
Well, in the historical viewpoint of Mount Zion, is the holy mountain where God kind of like dwells, or He has His footstool, or when He comes back, that's going to be the holy mountain where the Israelites dwell in Jerusalem. And when you see Jerusalem, it's always associated and in line with Mount Zion. So it's not far from Jerusalem, Mount Zion. And Mount Zion is a high mountain. And the Bible says that Jerusalem, in Psalms 125:1, it says that Jerusalem is surrounded and encircled by mountains and hills. When you look at the Central African region, where you have the West African Rift and the East African Rift. And you see the area of the Congo, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Lake Victoria, and all these lakes. In that Central African region, as you're going to see on all points of an 180-degree circle, you're going to see mountains and hills surrounding that region. In Kenya, Kenya does have Mount Kenya, yes, and other smaller mountains, just like Tanzania has Mount Kilimanjaro, but it's not surrounded by mountains on all sides.
I think this one links to this one that you've just answered. From Monera TV, ask him the real location of the land of Canaan and the Jerusalem temple, or the ruins thereof.
So when you look at the land of Canaan is not just one country today. It's not just Angola. It's not just Gabon or Cameroon, not just the DRC. The Europeans have carved out these lands and created these countries. The land of Canaan was exactly what it states. It was the land of the Canaanites. Just like I touched on in my book and movie, when the Bantu people migrated south, past Sudan, beyond the Nile River, into the interior of sub-Saharan Africa, who did they run into? They ran into the little black people and the Khoisan Bushman people, who are the cousins of the African pygmy. This land is vast. There have reports of the little black people in Liberia, in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, in Nigeria, in Cameroon, in Malawi, in Mozambique, and even they found the DNA of the African pygmy in caves in Ethiopia, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Congo, South Africa, Malawi, Cameroon. So, and this is dating back to 2000 BC and beyond. So they were already there before the Bantu people even got there. And we know that this land that the Bantu people predominantly dominate and live in is a good land. It's better than North Africa. It's better than the Sahel, the desert. It's better than Saudi Arabia. It's better than modern-day Israel. So when you look at the land of Canaan, it is a vast, large piece of land that extends more than just one African country. And Jerusalem is a place where you would see the hub of the Israelites seeing as their central spiritual and political city. One of the things we have to also look at is that the Bantu people, their language all connects back to the Congo. In any Bantu language, you can see its connection back to Kikongo, even people in East Africa and Swahili. So when you look at one of the oldest kingdoms that is not talked about by Europeans and others, and the oldest church that the Catholic Church inserted and installed in sub-Saharan Africa, it's in the former kingdom of the Congo. Remember, Ethiopia didn't have their churches built by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church knew about the Kingdom of the Congo back, before the slave trades began. They knew about them, people living there. And when they came there, they seen that this was a magnificent kingdom. And this kingdom had a large city where they had one king, the Mani Congo, that ruled over 12 provinces.
Okay, Ron, that's all the time we have for this one. Thank you very much for coming through. But any last words for someone who wants to find out more about what you have to say? Look at the camera or look at that.
Yeah. So to follow me and my content, since I was banned from YouTube in 2022, then go to www.h2ntv.com. h2ntv.com. You'll find all the references, all the stuff to back up what I'm saying, all the videos, all the lessons, all the documentaries to prove everything I just said today. And likewise, like I've been saying for the last year or two, if people don't believe in what I'm saying and they disagree, then I challenge you to debate me. I challenge you. If you're a top Jewish rabbi, Christian pastor, Muslim imam, Israelite leader, teacher, or if you're a Pan-Africanist, spiritual leader, historian, educator, philosopher, Joshua Mapanga, I'm ready for you. Let's have that sit-down talk like I've been trying since last year. Anybody, we need to, get the facts laid out on the table and cover these things so our people can learn the truth. We deserve the truth, and my job is to bring out this truth that many people are really bucking against because we've been so used to believing what the Europeans have told us and shown us and led us to believe.
Thank you. Let's call Mapanga. You can stop us.
Okay.
Thanks for your time, Ron.
So we need to find out where is Eden first, then east of Eden. So until we establish Africa as Eden itself, the whole extrapolation of a desert, small little piece of land that is in the Palestine, it's being called, it's all fallacy of the highest order. I don't believe in all that junk. I've gone past that bus stop. I'm not impressed, to say the least. But let's make time, pop in. You can make a booking there with Namini, and I think we should be landing in town, I think, on Monday.
Okay.
We can work around Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because by Thursday, Friday, I must be in Bloemfontein for another men's match for women violence and what. Yeah. So those 2-3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, could be practical.
I'm free all day. All day. I don't have a job.
Futsi Jane, thank you for answering, Baba. Are you not back from Uganda?
I came Uganda, Harare, Joburg, Lusaka. I'm in Zambia now.
Okay, so we will talk on Monday then, you say, and arrange.
I'm flying on Monday, so if I don't pick up the phone, it only means I'm still on air.
Okay.
But I'm coming on Monday. Yeah.
Thank you, Baba. Uhambe kahle.
Sure.
Siyabulela nathi. Have a good day.
Yeah,
Futsi Jane, sharp.